powerful. Former New Zealand Prime Minister Helen Clark is Commissioner of the Global Commission on Drug Policies. He joins us via Skype from Auckland. We appreciate your time so much. So not only does the Commission find that these drug laws, as they are in most countries now, are not effective, you're saying in some ways they actually benefit the worst offenders? And by offenders, I mean the drug dealers?
Most definitely. The prohibitionist approach has really been a gift to organised crime because it's given it a huge market, estimated at something like $650+ billion market a year, peddling drugs. So the view of the Global Commission on Drug Policy is you could actually disrupt that by states taking on the responsible regulation of drugs and getting supply out of criminal hands. Then you can focus on what's really important, and that is organised crime itself, with its general extortion, fraud, money laundering, people and guns trafficking, and so on. That's what the law and order attention should be on, not on the simple member of the community who is a person using drugs.
So when you say the law and order, is part of the problem that law and order has been tainted by politics? Because it's really clear that some states have taken the move to release some prisoners in the overcrowding prisons right now because of the coronavirus pandemic. These are people that are not high-level offenders, that are not dangerous. This is something they could have done a long time ago before this happened. What role does politics play in more politicians and governors and mayors not taking moves like that?
It's all politics, really, to say that you're going to be hard on crime and hard on criminals. And yet in our jails globally, there's a couple of million people sitting there for the simple possession of drugs. They're not doing anyone else any harm. Overwhelmingly, these people are non-violent. And it is interesting that in the circumstances of COVID-19, with fears of it going into the jails, and indeed it is in a number of jails around the world, then countries are taking steps to release these non-violent offenders. So it really raises the issue of why were they ever there? Repeat, at the Global Commission, we see prohibition and the laws drafted around that, which repress people who use drugs, as highly counterproductive.
Also, the offenders and the addicts, more often than not, are poorer people. They're often people of color as well. So what additional detrimental effect is this having on communities?
Well, really a horrendous effect. If you look at Mexico, for example, which went into a full-blown war on drugs with the presidency that began around 2006, that has led to a sharp increase in the homicide rate, so many displaced people and missing people, totally counterproductive. So our view is that you could actually disrupt organised crime by taking their product away from them, make the state a responsible regulator of drugs, and deal with people using drugs as having a range of health and social issues rather than as criminals. It's the criminalisation itself that becomes the problem. Then that frees law and order attention to look at the real issues that organised crime is involved in that need attention. And that, as I say, is the fraud, the extortion, the trafficking of guns, people, and so on.
I realize the report is lengthy, so I apologize for asking this very narrow question. But if you had to pick one recommendation to get the attention of politicians and leaders and law enforcement that keep approaching this in the wrong way as you see it, what would that be? How do you incentivize them to change how they think about this?
I think the best incentive often is an economic one. There are plenty of arguments based in human rights for not treating people who use drugs the way they're treated at the moment in the criminalised regime. But the reality is it's also costing a lot of money for no good purpose to pursue the people who use and possess drugs, to lock them up, to keep them in jails for a very, very long time. And then few people ever come out of jail a better person. In fact, jails are recruiting stations for organised crime. So the way we're dealing with these issues at the moment is not productive, it's expensive, and rather damaging to people's health and well-being.
Former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Helen Clark, thank you very much for your report and your insight.
Thank you.